Hi there, welcome back to How Flight, where breaking rules is the only rule. Have you ever been to a wedding party, or even better, maybe organized one? If you have, then you know how important planning it is for a wedding party. Otherwise, it just falls apart. Ad hoc wedding party? Well, I guess good luck with that. So let's jump in and break some rules. So today I want to talk to you about something that many refer to as intentional photography. I kind of do not like that term. I will explain why. I prefer to call it planned photography. In my previous video, I should say, I talked about ad hoc photography, and with ad hoc photography you have purpose and intention. The intention is to shoot, but you have no plan. Now with this kind of photography we're talking about today, you have a plan. You still have intention. So intentional doesn't really mirror the true differentiation between ad hoc and planned photography. So that's why I kind of prefer the planned photography approach. And by the way, the wedding analogy obviously doesn't necessarily stand completely, but you get the idea. So in this video, I will be talking about a couple of things. First of all, what is planned photography? Why is it important? Why is it beneficial? And how should you approach it? How should you introduce it to your workflow? First of all, let me show you some of my favorite examples of my own planned photos. So this was a location I knew about. This was a beautiful foggy fall morning, and I knew about the power lines, and when I saw the weather in the morning, I just knew there's got to be something great there. And I went there and I just had to kind of really find this angle, and I really love the vibe, the fogginess, and I think I love this picture. I think this is a great example of a good intentional effort. This is a nearby river, and this time of the year, which is spring, there's a lot of flooding due to melting snow, and that piece of land you see, it's basically a pathway almost completely flooded. And now with this reflection, the snow, I just knew there's got to be something, and I just went there and I found it. I love this one. And then spring is bird season. There's this location where I know there's a lot of birds, nesting at spring, and I just really there was a lot of them, and I just really needed to find the right angle and a lot of this was ad hoc, really. There was an intention there, but a lot of ad hoc kind of pictures, and this is a pretty decent shot. I kind of like it. And then here's another example. This was, I think, a 600 millimeter, again, a pretty distant one, but I just had to be patient and find this kind of a clear path between me and one of those birds, to kind of sit still on that branch. And I love the fuzziness. And again, this intention really paid off. This is one of my favorites. No, that's my tripod. The fishing rod is next to... No, don't take the tripod. Jeez Louise. I'm sorry, a little bit of a contextual interference. So where was I? So while ad hoc photography can be a lot of fun due to its more random nature, intentional photography, or planned photography, let's call it that way, is, well, how should I say, more planned by sheer nature of it. So just a tiny addition to this video. This is another one of those Talking Heads videos where I'm just elaborating some of my ideas and visions. And ultimately, photography is about having a vision for something, and I think it's just really important to have that clarity. So you can think of planned photography like this. Say you want to buy a new car. You can have approach A, where you know exactly what kind of brand and model you want to buy. Then you go to those dealerships, and then if you are persistent, if you have money, you can end up, driving home one of those cars. Or you can have a plan B or approach B, where you want to buy a new car, but you are completely clueless, what kind of car, what brand, what make that would be. So now you start shopping around. You go to all these dealerships, and it can be overwhelming because you kind of now frustrated because, okay, I like that one, but that one is cheaper. Or but the third one, which is my favorite, they won't have it in stock for 6 months, so suddenly you're in this kind of turmoil. Or you could go out for a gallon of milk and come home with a brand new Porsche. I like that. And by the way, there is an analogy to a photography strategy, for this, which I'm going to be covering in another video. So one very frequent misconception about plan photography is that it kind of kills creativity and spontaneity. Well, it doesn't. I mean, there is no such thing as planning for everything. There are certain things for which you cannot ever plan for. So spontaneity, creativity is always going to be there. But with planned photography, you are focused on it, you are guiding it, you are more in control. What is planned photography anyway? So, based on my analogies for the wedding and the car purchase, you kind of get the idea. So with the planned photography, you start something like this. You have maybe a location in mind because you want to shoot landscape, and there's a nice, nearby lake, for example. So you have some location ideas. But then you start thinking, in some cases, about weather, because especially if it's outdoors, you're thinking, okay, I know this beautiful, spot for landscape photography, but it looks, or I bet it looks very different in harsh, sunlight as opposed to a foggy morning. So again, now you start kind of planning, when do I go? Then maybe you have more than one cameras. You will want to pick the right one. If you're doing bird photography or maybe sports events, you want to pick the faster one with a bigger buffer. But if you are maybe doing landscape, you maybe want to pick the one with more megapixels. And then there's the question of lenses, and most of us have multiple lenses. You kind of start picking the right one. So when you are on location, you are prepared, you are focused on certain things, and there's a good chance you won't be distracted, because if you are shooting a hockey game, it's very unlikely you're going to be distracted with some, great landscape pictures. But of course, or landscape frames. Of course, this is an extreme example, but having said that, let's say you are maybe shooting birds in a beautiful location, then you could be torn between, okay, am I shooting birds or landscape? But if you have a premeditated plan, your mind will be on birds, and you will be less distracted by other, opportunities, for which you can go back later on. So you are more focused. So what does it all mean for your workflow when you start shooting in a planned manner? Well, first of all, you are more organized. You slow down. You take your moment to think things through. And that kind of puts you in a lot better position, for creating great pictures. As a result of this, I guarantee you will be coming home with fewer pictures on your card. I remember the time when my measure of success or performance would be the number of pictures on my memory card. When I would come home, like, yeah, I have 2,000 pictures, but then I would maybe get rid of 1,950, right? It's a little bit of exaggeration, but you get the idea. With planned photography, you are a lot more focused, so the overall ratio of keepers will be higher. Then there's the choice of gear. It's going to be more deliberate rather than random or even habitual. I mean, I know there's been times when I would just grab my camera bag, put in, one or two lenses, then I would just realize I would be out in on a beautiful landscape location, and like the lens I left home was my wide-angle lens, so you kind of you're more in control of how you approach things. And again, this will result in you feeling a lot better about yourself as a photographer, and the quality of your pictures will be a lot higher, and that's a win-win situation. And consequently, your editing workflow will change too, because you will be focusing less on aesthetics only, and you will be much more purposeful in your editing process, because that editing workflow will be a natural extension of your original plans and intentions that you had when you went out or went wherever you did go to take those pictures. So plant photography makes your pictures a lot more personal, and your motivation will become a lot clearer, and that will be very obvious for your viewers. And I talked about motivation in my video number 1, and there's a link down here in the description. So that message will come through to your audience too, when you have that clarity in yourself. Because don't forget, your number 1 fan base should be you. If you don't like your own pictures, well, how can you expect anyone else to like them? And also, photography becomes your voice rather than just pure reaction. There's nothing wrong with reaction. There's nothing wrong with ad hoc nature of doing pictures. But again, having your voice, which will help also build your style, is, I think, very important when you are in any sort of art. So how should you start? How should you approach taking planned pictures? What should be your starting point? I think, at least this is what worked for me, is to start asking questions. So before I go anywhere, I just have the thought, okay, I want to take pictures. So ask yourself, why am I doing that? Is it because I want to stretch my legs and take some great pictures at the same time, which is great, there is nothing wrong with that? Or I have something in my mind, some plan, which we discussed earlier, right? Location, weather, genre, whatnot. And then, even when you are on location, when you pick your right gear, your weather, everything is planned, ask yourself, why am I at this very spot? What is it that attracts me here? Why am I using this particular lens? What am I expecting from this weather, conditions? So ask yourself these questions, and this will help you kind of get into that mood and vibe where you are more focused. And in time, this will become your second nature, and you won't even have to ask these questions consciously. This will become your natural part of your workflow, and you will just go with it. You will just be in the moment, really, and you will just make better choices spontaneously and naturally. If you like my video, please consider subscribing. That would mean the world to me, and you will be supporting my work. Also, share and like this video, and add some comments. What do you think about planned photography? Do you have some exciting or fun stories? And maybe you could even share some of your favorite planned photos. I really, really appreciate your time, invested in this video. I'm very, very grateful for that, and I really, really hope to see you in the next one. So thank you so much for watching, and now please go and break some rules. Bye.